Welcome back to the channel, everyone. I'm Movie Micah. Another year has passed by, so I'm gonna rank every single movie that I saw from 2022. So yeah, I'm back. I didn't quit making videos, but I just wasn't as interested in some movies, and I didn't really have anything to talk about that would make for a good video. But now I'm back because I want to rank all 26 movies that I saw that were released in 2022 from worst to best. There were definitely some movies that I missed, but this is the ranking of the ones that I saw, so let's start the ranking. Jurassic World Dominion. This is truly a tremendous embarrassment of a movie. The fact that it was hyped up and marketed as a great conclusion to the Jurassic franchise is hilarious. Now it sits right next to The Rise of Skywalker for worst franchise killers of all time. They really got the whole cast back just for a plot about giant bugs where none of the characters add anything of substance. Not a single scene in this film isn't boring, and I can't see how anyone would defend it. In such a mediocre year that was 2022, Jurassic World Dominion very much earned its spot at the bottom of everything. At least Morbius, which I didn't see, had enough to add to meme culture, but this film is nothing. Fantastic Beasts: Secrets of Dumbledore. At least now we know we can give up on the Fantastic Beast films. There's nothing to look forward to in the wizarding world, and now that's very obvious. This movie was even more bland and useless than the previous two. I tried to convince myself that it wasn't that bad at first, but it was always a confused film with no identity or idea of what it wanted to accomplish. Acting was fine, I guess, but the story was garbage, and the best moments were just the same assortment of cheap tricks that they already used in the other Fantastic Beasts. Thor: Love and Thunder. I have over 3,000 more subscribers on this channel than I would have because of this movie and my hatred for it, so I guess I should thank Marvel. But nah, I still don't forgive anyone who worked on this movie for destroying Thor as a character and franchise. I've talked about it enough, but maybe I'll rant a little more. It's amazing that the biggest studio in the world could have so little care about quality that they'd allowed this to release. I used to think that a little bump in the road in the long course of the MCU was no big deal, but this movie single-handedly changed my mind and has made me cynical going into every MCU project since. That's this movie's legacy for me. Black Adam. I did not anticipate another Wonder Woman 84 level disaster from DC this year, but Black Adam came through. Don't ask me how it fits into the rest of the DCEU or even Shazam, because it doesn't make sense to me, but on its own it's still trash. There's no one really to root for, there's no reason that the main human character should like Black Adam so much, and there's no reason for the audience to care when that boring Justice Society old guy makes a sacrifice at the end. All we can hope is that the new plan for DC doesn't put out any of this from now on. Lightyear. This is the last of the films that I consider awful. It's a Lightyear movie that has nothing to do with Buzz Lightyear, and it symbolizes Pixar falling into the Disney muck trap. Somehow they turned Buzz Lightyear into a movie about being trapped on a terrible planet and never escaping. But the movie insists that Buzz and his crew are heroes after they failed to do anything. It's baffling that that was how it ended. I expected a harmless, fun Buzz Lightyear adventure, but what I got was not an adventure at all. What I got was a depressing story about a Buzz who's a failure and got a whole civilization stranded on this planet that's unlivable. Apollo 10.5. Wow, I'm blown away by all this pointless nostalgia. I don't understand the love for this film. It is such a meaningless trip into an ordinary childhood in the 1960s. It's so lazy that to try and get a reaction out of the audience, it just starts naming off the things that were on TV at the time. The director made a movie about his childhood, I guess, but didn't put any type of spin on it, and what a shock. To me, it's a shallow, pointless nostalgia fest that I couldn't care less about. DC League of Super Pets. It was kind of fun, maybe. It's an okay kids movie. It does everything it has to be passable, but does nothing more. It's meh. I would actually say it's like The Secret Life of Pets but DC superheroes, except Secret Life of Pets has more life in it. Turning Red. Alrighty, we're back to talking about Turning Red. Once again, I'm gonna say it's not my thing, and the lesson I learned from it is that I don't have to watch every Pixar movie. For the people who love this though, it's extremely flawed. It tries to be one of those accept who you are message movies, but that does not fit for this story. I don't think that the monster who comes from out of control emotions is what she should be accepting about herself. But whatever, this is still forever going to be the best Pixar movie of 2022. The Adam Project. I'm definitely not a fan of Sean Levy and Ryan Reynolds movies. There's something so fake feeling and off about this. It's a time travel story, but it's the most basic, bland story possible, and the setting for it is so unexciting. The most interesting part is a kid meeting his future self, which is something anyone could think of. Just do more next time, please. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. None of the movies from now on are necessarily bad, but I don't like Multiverse of Madness either. Not only is the multiverse story very underwhelming, the character arcs of Strange and Wanda are both halted and ruined. There are a couple cool scenes, sure, but there was close to no thought put into the characters carrying the movie, to the point where I don't accept this as a continuation of WandaVision or anything else in Marvel. And despite Sam Raimi's wacky directing, the movie still feels dead the entire time because of how short and rushed it is. Yeah, it's not awful, but it still showed the first signs of a falling MCU. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Here's another Marvel film that didn't hit for me. The reason that it's the best of what they made this year is because at least it's not a comedy. I'm very glad that they got away from the annoying jokey tone for once, but it's still not quite there. It was doomed from the beginning without Chadwick, and I think we all knew that, but now a lot of people are loving it. For me, no one was good enough to step up and fill in for that missing role. They sure tried with Shuri, but she's just not on that level. And as a tribute to Chadwick, it wasn't that great either. They mentioned T'Challa at the beginning and the end, but pretty much forgot about him in the middle. I truly did want to like this film, but it never picked up any momentum, and I couldn't make myself care about Namor or any of the main conflict. It just felt dull the whole time. I see more effort in this than the other two Marvel films, but I can't lie and say it's great. Kimmy. A nice little forgettable quarantine movie with decent concept, decent acting, and a very good finale. I honestly might recommend, though I haven't thought about it once since I first saw it. Amsterdam. I liked this during the watch, but now I've completely forgotten what happened. I know that I was trying hard to follow everything, only to be a little underwhelmed by the ending twist. The acting was the highlight for sure, from Christian Bale and the 100 other big names. I also really did like the three main characters and their interactions. Other than that, it's not something that needs to be discussed a lot. The Gray Man. If there's one thing that demonstrates how mid this year was, it's the Gray Man being this high. It's 13th, but there's absolutely nothing special about it. The Russo brothers direct some good action, but the characters and story are nothingness. I liked seeing Chris Evans and Ryan Gosling fight. Do I remember why they fought? Nope. There's no way this movie should be getting a sequel. It doesn't deserve that, but somehow it did land here in the 2022 list. Avatar: The Way of Water. You know, if you skip the first 2 hours, it's pretty good. Honestly, I can say that I consider the rest of these films good. However, Avatar 2's first 2 hours could have been cut out entirely, almost. It's so hilariously predictable that James Cameron would keep half of this movie, even though it's useless cutscenes, just like the first Avatar. So much of the middle of this is the green Avatar water people swimming and having conflict with the Sully family, which we did not need to see. So much setup that didn't really add anything. But then the last hour happened. It surprised me because I was actually invested. The action was great and I cared about Jake Sully's kids surviving. Then the Titanic scene with blue people was good too. But I thought it was so funny that James Cameron just couldn't help himself. Maybe this franchise has potential, but this movie still wasn't top tier to me. Spirited. This is potentially the only Ryan Reynolds performance that I haven't hated, because at least he didn't try to be serious. Him and Will Ferrell were both fun and likable. The music was good. It was a fun Christmas movie to start off the season. I thought it was a very clever spin on the Christmas Carol story, and it was dumb and fun. That's all it needed to almost make the top 10. Minions: The Rise of Gru. The cultural impact this movie had was more interesting than the movie itself, but it still did earn being this high. I just like how the memes actually helped this movie get so much more money than it would have. Overall, it's a wacky, nonsensical, fun movie, and probably the most harmless movie Illumination has ever done. A massive improvement from the first Minions, even though Illumination still could do more. This is kind of their first movie that nobody really hates. The Batman. After first seeing this, I was pretty disappointed, because the character of Bruce Wayne still wasn't that interesting to me. I always wanted a deep dive into the mind of Batman in live action, but I feel like we still haven't gotten that. This film is also very exhausting and not always worth the runtime. However, it does everything else very right. The villains are fascinating and all parts of the story are tied up flawlessly. The atmosphere of Gotham is darker than ever and it works for this world. And the detective side of Batman is great to see as well, but it's still not one of the greatest films of the year. It is absolutely the best thing from DC or Marvel though. Chip and Dale, Rescue Rangers. I don't care about Chip and Dale and I never have, but somehow this movie was really good. It's a better version of what Roger Rabbit tried to do with the mixed animation styles and crossovers between universes, and yeah, this is a reference and cameo-filled movie. This type of movie is looked down on, but it was creatively and cleverly done in this, without being just a bunch of cheap, tiny fan service bits. I'm sure a ton of you are bewildered that this is above the Batman, which I understand. Maybe I did that because I thought it was funny to make someone mad today, or maybe I did it because I actually believe this film was more engaging for more of its runtime. I had a really fun time, and it's one of the best crossover movies, even with that being most of the hype around films today. Nope. The rest of these films I consider great. So yes, Jordan Peele has done it again. With his 3 awesome entries, he's shaping up to be one of my favorite working directors. While I didn't pick up on some of the themes people are talking about, I still thought this was fascinating in a lot of ways. Each character is pretty fun to get to know, and linking all the little pieces of the plot together makes for a great experience. The visuals, the eeriness and suspense, and pure atmosphere that Peele created was amazing yet again, and I wondered how it would be concluded. Unfortunately, the ending left me a little sour the first time, but I really do admire the film as a whole. Probably just a little less accessible than Get Out or Us. Still awesome. All Quiet on the Western Front. I haven't seen the original film with this title, but I really appreciated this one. The cinematography was the best of the year, and the war scenes had me hooked the whole time. It's always interesting to see what new thing a war movie can bring to the table, and I wasn't sure what this one would do for me, but it really highlighted the mindlessness of war, and how so many died without a choice and for no purpose. Especially these characters who died after the war had ended. It didn't really matter what side they were on, they were just people who should have gone home, but they died for no reason. That's what'll stick with me with this movie. In the top 5, Top Gun Maverick. Far superior to the first Top Gun in my opinion, with better characters, better drama, better action, better music, and a far better, more memorable, and more epic finale. It's not in the same league as its predecessor in my opinion. Every part of the build-up was perfectly crafted, and got me to care about Maverick and the impossible mission succeeding. The flying scenes are all thrilling and perfectly done as well, and the heart of this film is all the characters earning each other's respect. There's nothing more satisfying than that. I also respect this film for not being controversial in any way. It's just a satisfying spectacle that nobody can say they dislike or they can't be taken seriously. Top Gun Maverick is already a bigger classic to me than Top Gun. The Fabelmans. This just solidifies Spielberg as the best out there. The fact that we have a project this personal from one of the biggest filmmakers in the world is something really special and should not be taken for granted. For any kid who has thought about making movies or has tried to, this is for you. It strikes so deeply in that way, but not only just for people interested in getting into the industry, it's also relatable just as a story about childhood and having an interest of any kind. I absolutely love that Spielberg translated his story into film like this, and if it does end up being his last, it's a perfect note to end on. After a few years where his movies weren't as good as his classics, he put his all into this one and it turned out beautiful. I can safely say The Fabelmans is my favorite movie about making movies. Elvis. From the start, the energy that this movie created made it very special. The way the story was told with the ultra fast pace and some of the craziest editing I've ever seen, it made it very difficult to look away. This film made the story of Elvis feel like the grandest thing ever, because of how many years it covered by going so fast, but still feeling like a long time, which was a good thing in this case. All that on top of the best acting of the year from Austin Butler as Elvis. This movie worked for me on all levels. I have to say though, The Fabelmans could move above this with a little more time. For now though, Elvis deserves my top 3 spot. Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery. Somehow Rian Johnson recaptured the cleverness and magic of the first Knives Out, by doing it in a completely fresh, different way, which is exactly what a sequel has to do. It doesn't reuse any of the same twists as Knives Out, yet it's still just as interesting, which is so impressive. The cast was fantastic, the structure of the plot was perfect, and I loved the ending where the bad guy didn't get caught for what he originally did, but still got served justice in another way. To me, a mystery like this seems like the hardest thing to make entertaining and surprising for the entire runtime, but now Rian Johnson has done it twice in the same cinematic universe. I think he's redeemed himself from The Last Jedi now. And the best of the year was Everything Everywhere All at Once. It had to be number one. With all the surprising hype around this film, it still shocked me with how out there and inventive it was, and how much it affected me. I already love multiverse stories, but there's absolutely no other movie that took advantage of this concept as well as this did. I've kept saying since it came out that it's the type of movie I'd try to make, because it's super creative and crazy, but it's not nonsense, even if it seems like it at first. It all has real life meaning, no matter how weird it gets, and that just clicks with me. It has themes like life feeling meaningless, which it tackles seriously, even through the wild scenarios of the multiverse. It's larger than the entire universe, and yet it still tells a down-to-earth human story, which is beautiful. Everything Everywhere All at Once is an unbelievable achievement, no doubt the best of this past year, and one of my all-time favorites.